Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Hello there, folks. So, we're here again talking a little bit about Ken Kratz. Now, part of the reason why I'm doing this is, obviously, Ken Kratz has been very busy lately. He's been uploading videos to YouTube. He's been pretty active over on Twitter. He's had a lot to say over there. And he even mentioned at one point, he actually challenged people to tell him when he said sweat DNA. And to which the answer came. And anyway, so he's been pretty active. And so I'm just continuing to talk about this because not only is it a problem what Ken Kratz did, especially as the being on the Crime Victims' Rights Board and that sort of stuff, and the things he did in the case with Ms. Van Grohl, I think it's Van Grohl, and the sexting that took place and those sort of things that were completely inappropriate. It's one of the things is, number one, for all the claims they make about Stephen and his treatment of women and that sort of thing. I mean, Kratz is victimizing victims of domestic abuse. He's choosing those people. He's choosing those women. I mean, so when I see how easily somebody like Ken Kratz gets away with it, and it all gets swept under the rug and basically rears its ugly head one more time to basically prevent Kratz from running for United States Congress. It kind of jumps up at the right time to trip that whole thing up, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a article right now for you all. It is from the Convoluted Brian website. Convoluted Brian has been following the Avery case for a long time. And so this is going to be an interesting article about the Ken Kratz sexting scandal. So here we go, and we'll come on back one more time after the article. Okay, so the name of the article is "Those Bastards, They Caught Kenny," which many of you will get as a reference to South Park. But anyway, it looks like Calumet County, Wisconsin District Attorney Ken Kratz has outdone himself. Last year, while he was prosecuting a person for attempted strangulation, he was hitting on the victim. During a period of 3 days, Kenneth Kratz sent 30 text messages to the woman explaining why she should be happy to have an affair with him. The case was being tried in Calumet County. Shannon R. Konitzer was charged with strangulation and suffocation for an assault on his ex-girlfriend, Stephanie Van Grohl. Kratz was going through a third divorce at the time. He intimates the action was a result of the divorce. It was Van Grohl's misfortune that the Calumet County prosecutor was smitten by her appearance. The Wisconsin Department of Justice allowed Ken Kratz to minimize his behaviors away. Only after the Associated Press was alerted to the constant text messages sent by Kratz to the victim did the buried bullying find a way to the light. Had it been up to the local news organizations, the transgression would have been overlooked or excused. As it is, the headline of one of the articles in Appleton, Wisconsin-based Post-Crescent stated that the text messages were not sexual. That is ridiculous. But that claim was made by Ken Kratz rather than those who were involved in the investigation of his behaviors. The author of that article, John Lee, was truly enamored with Kratz during the prosecution of Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey. Lee was unable to note the fabrications and machinations of police and prosecution in those cases. Ken Kratz has always been a glory hound. The television news and newspapers in northeast Wisconsin have enabled his grandiosity rather than question it. Even judges allowed his grandstanding. In March of 2006, Kratz held a press conference that was televised during the afternoon. During this PR event, Kratz detailed a series of gruesome actions that Stephen Avery and his nephew Brendan Dassey allegedly perpetrated upon Teresa Halbach. That speech was based upon statements that had yet to be corroborated. The statements were coerced and crafted by investigator Mark Wiegert of Calumet County and Wisconsin Special Agent Tom Fassbender. Brendan Dassey was a 16-year-old special education student who was targeted by police and prosecution because he was an alibi witness for his uncle, Stephen Avery. In 2002, Kratz, along with his helper, Calumet County Sheriff Jerry Poggle, enjoyed giving press conferences about the Great Hilbert sex ring. These two speculated on the probability of ever-widening circles of lurid sexual activities. This was a case where a 16-year-old female apparently engaged in a video or photo sex with her 17-year-old boyfriend. The girl's father, reported the incident. Kratz felt obligated to find a patriarch and targeted the father of the boy. Kratz was lenient with the stepmother of the boy. Kratz moved her to another county. When the woman was subsequently found with another juvenile male involved in the case, Kratz was still lenient, although she violated court no contact orders. So justice is a very malleable thing, a malleable thing with Kratz, right? In the end, the father paid dearly for his son's action. Kratz doctored some charges. To be fair, Kratz had help from an incredibly naive and ignorant Fond du Lac County judge, and it appears that the father had a crappy local defense attorney. The consequences and costs of this escapade were far in excess of the crime. I'm sure that Kratz and Poggle were saddened by the limited size of their sex ring. The current misconduct began in October 2009. Kratz decided that Van Grohl, a victim in a domestic abuse case, was amenable to his charms. Kratz sent those 30 text messages that gradually increased in suggestiveness and aggressiveness. Even the early messages were showing the course the theme was to take. Kratz asked the victim why she wasn't responding, and she answered that she had a fever and hoped it wasn't H1N1. Kratz then offered to bring her some chicken soup. The victim responded that she wasn't hungry. When King Kratz offered to bring her a margarita, since it contained fruit juice, his message progressed from an attempt to appear bashful and bungling to offers of wealth and status. He offered her a role of a concubine. He noted that while she was a nymph, he had the power and the money. The messages fell into the genre called sexting. Finally, the victim contacted the police in Kaukauna, Wisconsin. Due to her concern about the tone and number of messages, the police referred the matter to the Wisconsin Department of Justice over concerns of conflict of interest. A series of emails between Kratz and Kevin Potter of the Wisconsin Department of Justice show that Kratz was denying any impropriety. Potter quoted specific sections of the text messages that made those claims a lie. Potter also informed Kratz that if he did not contact the Crime Victims Board, that Potter would. Kratz was the chairman of that board. Kratz finally sent a letter of resignation to that board. And you guys may remember I did a recent video about some of the emails between Potter and Kratz. And so that's what that's referring to there. Kratz since claimed that his resignation from that board was voluntary. But either he fessed up or someone else would inform the board membership. That is not as altruistic as Ken claimed. Kratz also had to relinquish the prosecution of the perpetrator. The victim stated that Kratz suggested downcharging the perpetrator prior to the campaign of seduction. I doubt that Kratz would have dropped his prosecutor role unless the Department of Justice pointed out the multiple problems that Kratz's behaviors caused. Again, Kratz claims that he gave up the case on his own. The emails show that he acknowledges that the DOJ advised him. So, yeah, Kratz is very disingenuous. Throughout the correspondence between Kratz and the Wisconsin DOJ, clearly Kratz intended to dictate a resolution that painted him in a favorable light. In the end, Potter agreed to pursue the case, not to pursue the case, and to let it die a quiet death. The membership of the Crime Victims Board remained quiet about the incident. The now double victim filed a complaint with the Office of Lawyer Regulation. She was rebuffed. Since the incidents became public, other state agencies have remained quiet, including the Office of Victims' Rights. Many of these same agencies applauded Kratz when he railroaded Brendan Dassey in a conviction for murder. The present matter is not isolated as King Kratz would like us to believe. Part of the problem is that Wisconsin prosecutors have almost unlimited power to do wrong. Kratz would have gotten away, yet again, with his coercion and breaking of rules had not someone alerted an outside news agency. We must keep in mind that Kratz is not alone. Wisconsin rules for prosecutors encourage a disregard for fairness and honesty. So Kenny got caught, and it looks as if something will stick to whatever tipped off the Associated Press. I'll give a heartfelt thanks. Now Kratz is getting the kind of attention he deserves. So that's this. I think this article is from, when is this from? 2010. So this was, reporting on it kind of like, well, back when it was happening, essentially, right? Or, closer back to when it was happening. So this is from the Convoluted Brian website, folks. I will leave a link for this in the description below. And so now we'll talk a little bit about this article. Okay, so that was Convoluted Brian's coverage of the Kratz scandal back in 2010, which is very interesting. Convoluted Brian has been covering Avery for a long time prior to MAM. It was a website that we all were very much, into when we first watched MAM, and we were, just basically drinking in information, and we were getting documents and stuff like that. Convoluted Brian was one of the websites we spent a lot of time at. It's a good website for you guys. I'm going to leave a link to the article below. Once there, you can find maybe other things on the Convoluted Brian website that you might be interested in. So, yeah, the whole thing with Kratz is he's always acted and felt that he was above the law, that it didn't pertain to him. It's always come out that way. It's always bothered me about him. And, this article shows that. And then I'm going to leave you a link for one more video down below. It's a video I uploaded a while back, but it's actually the audio of the reporter, Ryan Foley, when he, at a press conference, he challenges King Kratz with the knowledge of these sexts to this girl. And you get to see King Kratz using all of his powers of trying to deflect it, turn it back on Ryan, and all the various things. So I'm going to leave that down below for people to check out. And like I said, this is the way it is. And like I say, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're getting so much vocal, that Kratz is being so vocal all of a sudden and that sort of stuff. I woke up this morning, and on my Facebook page, I had a really old post I made about Lynn Hartman. I woke up this morning and found she had made like 3 comments, answered 3 comments that were like 22 weeks old. And she was in there like commenting, and she was answering with some fire. It was interesting. And it's like, these folks who believe in the guilt are, I don't know, starting to seem like maybe they're getting a little uncomfortable, getting a little buggy, getting a little, uncomfortable, right? So, anyway, that's King Kratz. Like I said, give a check if you haven't already. Look at the video I'm going to put the link for down below, where you see the reporter Ryan Foley challenging King Kratz with this knowledge of these texts, sexts, and what happens, and the way King Kratz responds to it and acts about it, and everything. It's very interesting. So, all right, That's about it for this one, folks, for today. Always be wary of Ken Kratz. Obviously, he's out there talking and trying to, convince people and win people over. And, we have, people out there like, what's his name? Sean Hansen, who recently interviewed Sean Reck. And, what did he say? He said he thought Ken Kratz was a straight shooter. It's like, we got people out there like that can say things like that. And it's like, it's a scary thing. So, all right. Okay, that's about it for this one, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.